So previously I talked about 2 Kings 5 verse 1, and I suggested that I was all done with the phase 1 for this. Um, but perhaps it's good to show my thought processes and how I'm wishy-washy about this verse. So I decided to make some changes thinking about it. Um, and the reason was I was looking at, thinking again about the translation for translators, which gave soldiers as a possibility. And also I was thinking about the translator's handbook that um, says that Syria and Israel were apparently at peace during the time of the Naaman incident. You'll see that later as there's a conversation between the two kings. The key girl who is the key to this story had been captured by the Syrians on one of their previous attacks. So that's thinking to me that these people think that it was a group of soldiers. And then the other thing that made me think about this was, how did she end up in Naaman's household? Uh, Perhaps because it was a group of soldiers. So I've decided to change it. Previously, groups of soldiers. Soldiers. Okay, and another thing, I decided to add, and it'll be useful for you to see how you can do this, some implicit information here. I'm going to add a sentence. That girl came to Naaman apostrophe S house, period. Implicit hyphen info, right paren. Okay, so what have I done here? I added an extra sentence. Those soldiers captured a young girl who was from Israel, and that girl came to Naaman's house. Now that's not in the Bible, but I think it's definitely implied. And I added it with this, in parentheses, implicit hyphen info. So this just makes it easier to understand. And because it's going to be marked as an implicit information, the translators will have switches they can use that will either turn these on or turn these off, this kind of information. So it doesn't mean that we're necessarily including this in the final translation, but it can be included if the target language translator wants it. I think it makes it clearer. And notice I used a very neutral term, so we don't know if Naaman bought the girl or Naaman brought her, like Naaman was in charge of the raiding party and then he brought her to his house, or people, soldiers brought her to him as a gesture of friendship. We don't have any idea. So I use this very generic come verb. If you look in the ontology at verbs, events, or verbs, and come, you see the only required argument is the agent. You can have a destination where you're coming to, or a source where you came from, but you don't have to have those. So come can be used in a very generic way. Here there's going to be a destination. She came to Naaman's house. Okay, so after these changes, I now have previously groups of soldiers went from Aram to Israel in order to steal things from the people of Israel. So I'm still including that idea of raiding. Those soldiers captured a young girl who was from Israel, and that girl came to Naaman's house. Then that girl served Naaman's wife. Okay, let's see if I can be happy with that. Have a